So let's start. What is inclusive education in higher education? As we have already said last time, in the realm of academic education, inclusive practices are recognized as essential for fostering what? An equitable learning environment. This implies rethinking about our approaches and our way to teach, how courses are taught and assessed, to ensure that all the students, regarding their backgrounds, their learning needs, have equal opportunity to succeed. That is, to exploit their possibilities at the top. Inclusive practices in higher education encompasses a range of strategies, tools, that can go from diversifying curricula and assessment to employ teaching methods that cater to different learning styles and ability. And of course, this requires a good knowledge of our students. In addressing these key factors and implementing inclusive practice, universities can create inclusive environment that truly support success and well-being of students, yes, but of teachers too. What are the key factors affecting inclusive educations? We have already given I have already given an overview of those key factors last time. Inclusive education, inclusive learning concerns, first of all, our own attitudes and beliefs. Then curriculum and instruction, rethinking to our way of teaching, the production of accessible course materials, an assessment that is flexible and can really allow all students to express their knowledge of the contents, an inclusive pedagogy, and above all school or university or academy, culture, and leadership. For each of them, I will briefly recall meaning, what it means, and ways to implement it. Later, I will deepen the concept of accessible materials, flexible assessment, and pedagogy. Attitudes and beliefs. It is clear that inclusive learning requires a shift in mindset from viewing disability, but now I would say diversity, from considering diversity as a limit or a deficit to recognizing the diverse strengths and needs of all students. This concerns both teachers and non-teaching staff, and concerns the student too. This is paramount to increase the success of all inclusive practice. Though this is very difficult to work on because it involves values and beliefs that are deeply rooted in our consciences. So, how? We have to be open and facilitate, as many of you have already said last meeting, be open and facilitate the dialogue with and among the students. Be ready to listen to them and be ready to be flexible in adapting programs and assignments. Be aware that inclusion refers to all the students, not only the one with disabilities, because language, gender, cultural background, temporary psychological difficulties, or different habits could become what we have already called situational disabilities when facing a non-favorable environment. Questioning the idea of diversity means include disability and all the range of diversity in discussion, in teaching, in contents and assignment, considering the knowledge of diversity and how to approach it as a professional knowledge. That is, knowing our future customers and future users as future professionals. And then communicating with the students and let the students communicate among them. That could imply also using collaborative technologies, enabling cooperation at a distance, such as Google Drive, the Miro board, the artificial intelligence, for instance, for translation and cooperative learning, such as group work and or considering to empower some students and use, in brackets, them as teachers when their competence are specific, relevant, and they could teach something either to us teachers and the classroom. Communication. Communication is a very important issue. What we communicate to the students and how we do this impacts on their learning. This can range from practical details, such as giving right from the start students information about how and when they can contact us, or clarifying how frequently we will be meeting with them, if we are available for one-to-one meetings, to broader issues, such as the language and the examples we use when explaining concepts, and the criteria we use for assess their competency. One of the keys to communicating with students is clarity of expectations. Students will have different expectations about how they should participate in classroom, how and when they have to complete work, and the quality, what is considered quality of the work produced, how they should use reading lists or other resources, and so on. By making our expectation explicit, all students will be better placed to work towards an specific achieved goals and will be more at ease, because anxiety and being not at ease are key factors and the impact on the quality of learning. As well as clarifying expectation, inclusive communication means using online tools. For instance, a portal for communicating all information about teaching and learning, connecting student learning. That means making clear why they are learning that specific thing and what else it links to their course path. Establishing an environment in which the students can feel free to share ideas, to ask questions, to try out with their opinion and ideas, as Luca pointed out with his example during Module 1. And as Luca pointed out again, promoting respectful discussion, which might require also clarifying appropriate language and communication expectation, especially when discussing sensitive topics. We had last time the example of the simultaneous presence of a student from Palestine and another one from Israel. So we as teacher first has to use language that is respectful of different student identities. The curriculum. Ecco, accessible course material. Curriculum, teaching methods, assessment practices used in the classroom must be designed to be accessible and engaging for students with different learning needs. This might involve providing differentiated instruction using universal design for learning principles that we have already seen, and offering multiple ways for students to demonstrate their knowledge. So we have to be aware that inclusive design for learning requires a constant dialogue among all the teachers of a course and with the academic leadership and support from other experts. That can be association of person with disability or other experienced person. Maybe they could be the students themselves. Then we have to be aware that inclusive design for learning, as Pino Mincolella said during Module 2, is really effective when is co-designed. So accessible learning course materials could range from video material, audio material, printed material, allowing the use of tablet, allowing the use of distance and remote attendance. But as I recalled from the case reported by Otto Dance from Lithuania, the availability within the university of a sort of tech room where students can use a performing computer and work there instead that at home with low performing devices could be a good accessible provision. And as far as co-design is concerned, an activity that could be done could be creating together a sort of manifesto of inclusion at the beginning of a course to share vision and values without teaching anything. On the other hand, all students should be considered and consider themselves as young adults, being actively responsible for their learning path. As learning is a right, they have to advocate for it first. That could mean share their needs and ask for reasonable accommodation or explain why, what they are used to, and how they learn if asked. They must be informed so they can choose fully aware of what is requested to them. But we will come back to this later on too. Assessment. Flexible assessment mean that first, all course material shall be inclusive and provided in different form, but assessment too has to be flexible, sorry. That means equal opportunities. What are some kind of flexible assessment? They could be oral presentation, or group project, or written assignment, or experiments, or alternative formats, let's say 3D design or or more printings. So different methods to allow the students to demonstrate their learning in ways that suit their individual needs. But this issue is less simple than it may seem, if it seems simple, of course. So we'll focus on it later on. Inclusive pedagogy. What is this about? Incorporating teaching strategies that cater to diverse learning styles, such as active learning, collaborative learning, and the use of technology to enhance engagement and participation. What is active learning? Active learning, and I'm quoting from a document that I have uploaded in the folder, so that if you want, I have uploaded in the folder some PDF documents that I will mention today. So if you want to deepen the topic, you can download the files. I'm quoting from a paper called Active Learning, Creating Excitement in the Classroom. Active learning, in summary, is the process of actively engaging students to facilitate the construction of participatory knowledge. Active learning involves doing things and thinking about how things should be done. Some examples are asking students to create online tutorials on how to do something, develop a project or build a model or something like that. Or engaging in virtual trips with maybe guided activities through questions are examples of active learning activities. Cooperative learning involves an emphasis on the diversity rather than the uniformity of instruction. It's not simply working in teams. It requires an active role as facilitator from the teacher and deep preparation and construction of the activities. Because teachers can help to ensure that students are given tasks that they have the potential to accomplish individually, and that the group can and has to benefit from the diversity or peculiarity of each of them. It's not a competitive work, rather a collaborative work in which all together win or all together lose. Cooperative learning is an educational approach which aims to organize classroom activities into academic and social learning experience. It has been described as structuring positive interdependence. It is important that the group work is arranged in a way that each student can capitalize on one another's resources and skill. So asking one another for information. Let's say if we want to make a collaborative inclusive learning activity to include foreign students that don't speak very well our language and that tend to group themselves, we can choose an activity that requires a good knowledge of their countries or their habits or some cultural features, so that the rest of the group must rely on this member to have reliable information. And the last point I have mentioned is a good school culture and leadership. Because a strong committed academic leadership that promotes inclusive values and provides the necessary resources and support to teacher first and to student next is essential. Inclusion, as I have already said, works when the whole academic organization is committed and is aware that inclusive design for learning requires dialogue and investment, I'm afraid, between teachers and the academic leadership, and requires also support from other experts. Some of them could be external. I have found the 5 steps for developing an inclusive school culture. First of all is develop inclusive policies and procedures. That means ensuring that the university's policies, decision-making processes and procedures actively promote and support inclusive practices. Then provide comprehensive support services. That means offer a range of support services such as disability or psychological support, mental health counseling, academic tutoring to meet the diverse needs of students. I would add that such a support should be available to teachers too, because as I said last time, a teacher alone can solve the whole range of issues around inclusive learning. The third is foster an inclusive campus culture. That is, actively promote a university or campus culture that values diversity, equity, and inclusion through side events, workshops, and team building or community building initiatives. Invest in inclusive facilities and technologies. The university's physical spaces, the digital platform, and the technological infrastructure should be accessible and inclusive for all students. Sometimes this requires a shift, and this requires investments too. And last but not least, the university should provide regular training and professional development opportunities for faculty and staff to enhance their understanding and their implementation of inclusive practice. That means to be an inclusive university. Here, the image I'm showing now is the website from the Oxford University. And the Disability Advisory Service is the page designed by the university to be to show the provision of services for the disabled people. But the inclusive dimension of Oxford University is larger than this. And I will show you later the included page. Because a university can be exclusive by definition and yet being inclusive. Stating the prerequisite for admission, that in case of Oxford University is having A or top scores in the final A-level grade, stating the prerequisite for admission is not discrimination. As well, it is not a high tuition fee. But as many diverse students could meet the criteria to enter, for instance, Oxford University, the inclusive learning approach is mandatory to fulfill the diverse needs. So, in the website of the Oxford University, you can find included, there is a guide to inclusive teaching. It is a very complete guide I copied the link in the folder of handout material I would like you to accede to. A complete guide for teachers and students to develop inclusive teaching experiences and assessment. Because communication is very important. I think I will go through this later. Otherwise, I will make a short pause and come back to the issue of information and communication later. So let's come to the learning styles. We said we have to be flexible to provide accessible course materials, but what is our starting point? The starting point is the fact that all students learn in a different way. According to the valuable literature, there are different ways to classify the different learning styles based on psychological, attitudinal, or sensorial approaches. I chose the last one because it is somehow the easiest to detect, and the others comes later when the knowledge of your student increases as soon as the course proceeds. The three more common learning styles are visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. Of course, many of the students will have a combination of the three. Others can have a more prevalent one. Either way, knowing our student will easily lead us to find out the best strategies for any specific class. Bearing in mind that what we said during Module 1, that the key is differentiating the offer of material, is always helpful. In Europe, the words that is used for specific learning needs is special educational needs. I told you that I don't like the word special, and I have already explained why. So I prefer specific. Nevertheless, the common European term is special educational needs, and they include three subcategories: disability, specific developmental disorder, and socioeconomic, linguistic disadvantage and cultural disadvantages. The specific developmental disorders include learning disabilities, language deficits, nonverbal skills deficits, motor coordination deficits, attention deficits, and hyperactivity. In a way, I can say, at least in my personal experience, that sooner or later, all students experience special educational needs. That's why they are not so special at all. While describing the three main learning styles, I will point out how some special educational needs could lead to a specific learning style, especially those related to neurodiversity, such as autism and specific learning disorder like dyslexia. Generally speaking, though, students have their own learning style, which does not depend from the type of disability. A deaf student, for instance, could rely on view to pay attention, but could be a hands-on, that is kinesthetic, learner. As for tools and methodologies, the internet is full of suggestions, and there are experts from association in each of our countries that could be consulted for specific individual cases and needs. But I describe here some example linked to each style, just to provide you with a general frame of reference. It is quite obvious that digital technology and technology in general have improved dramatically the opportunity for teachers and learners. So Mainly the tools that I will show you are based on technology. So let's start with visual learners. It's quite obvious, but I repeat that visual learners are individuals who prefer to regain the information visually, be that with maps, graphs, diagrams, charts, and others. The visual types can use images and photos to better memorize, but it's not linked to image and photos. Visual learning is more linked to patterns and shapes. They need to see the different relationship and connection between data and facts. Students with dyslexia, as some autistic students, can benefit from such a visual way to display information, as well as students from other countries who do not speak well our languages and have a clear picture of the general topic at a glance. What are the tools? The tools are speech-to-text app that enable in real time to transform what is said and therefore heard to written text. Digital pens that can write notes that can be retrieved or seen directly on laptops and computers. There are apps to create maps and flowcharts. There are also apps that schedule a sequence of action and activities in a visual way. And those are very useful for students with dyslexia or some kind of autism, because they tend to get lost and confused, to lose the sense of time and not to arrange their activity properly. Of course, there are also magnifying screen or application that are already available within our Windows or Mac system. And they are useful not only for visually impaired people, but for everybody can feel the need for a larger and clear identifiable font or word or image. What is the methodologies that can be used for this kind of people? The digital storytelling, that is asking to present a topic or a range of things as a story to be narrated using images, drawings, videos, according to the capacity of the student. By actively engaging in digital storytelling and providing visual support, students have the advantage of creating, through their own words, drawings, photographs, their learning. This can be used as a method for assignment and essay too. Then there are maps, diagrams, mood board schemes, and visual presentation. The auditory learners. They are individuals who learn better when they take in information in auditory form, when it is heard or spoken. But I'm not referring simply to hearing a lecture like you poor are doing now. You are hearing someone who is speaking. They learn better when a topic is discussed and debated through the dialogue with the teacher and the other student. They better prompt out ideas when speaking rather than in advance. For them, discussion and recording or lesson or the availability of audiobooks is a very good solution, along with text-to-speech apps for handouts and printed materials. It is evident how visually impaired people and people with cognitive disability could also benefit from any provision implying hearing and repeating, as well as foreign students. So, beside the screen readers that are most used by blind people, there are other accessibility features inside PC and Mac computers that can help everybody. Also, certain type of digital pens will play back audio of the text listened in a lecture. If a required text is not available as e-text, I remember that the problem in Latvia is linked to copyright, so that books are not available as PDF and cannot be accessible by everyone and not be read by screen readers. You can create e-text from printed material using a scanner with an OCR, the optical character recognition. Of course, it has to be edited and it works better for short text, but it helps a lot of students and can be reproduced in small chapters or parts and maybe overcome the issue of copyright. Learning methodologies. Tutoring and peer tutoring are very useful in this case. Tutoring is flanking the student with an older and more experienced one, and peer tutoring is pairing the student with a fellow student of the same class to perform some of the activity, especially those involving repeating and discussing the topics learned. Debate and discussion are key elements for this type of learner, as well as the flipped classroom. The flipped classroom method is interesting, funny, and useful for all the students. It means reading or going through the topic of the lesson earlier. The students have to examine the learning material before the lesson so that they can have already an insight and can balance at home the time and the effort according to their needs. Then in classroom, there will occur practical exercise and or discussion, so the teacher can review and deepen what is needed by individual students and then adapt the lessons accordingly. And cooperative learning, we have already seen, is very important for them. But again, is engaging for all the students. Kinesthetic learners, simply person who prefer to learn by doing. They enjoy a hands-on experience. They usually are more practical, more in touch with reality and more connected to it. That is why they require using tactile experience and direct practice to understand something better. The best way to present new information to a kinesthetic learner is through personal experience, practice, as an example, and simulation. Moving requires focus. Movement, physical movement, requires focus on the one hand. On the other hand, helps to focus. Therefore, it can be really useful for ADHD students. Or I dare say for all the students from Gen Z, because their attention is reducing more and more every day. The tools can be laboratories, 3D printers, and the methodologies are the one I have already told you: simulation, real cases, practical examples, modeling, drawing, and prototyping. Now, I would like to focus a moment on assistive technology. Assistive technology is a term that was created to define all the technological tools and provision specifically designed for the needs arising from some types of disabilities. But nowadays, assistive technology can be considered helpful for many types of students. We have already described text-to-speech and speech-to-text assistive tools that can be used by students with dyslexia as well as by students of foreign origin who need to improve the knowledge of our languages. Common print disabilities can include blindness, dyslexia, and visual impairment, learning disabilities, or other physical conditions that even temporarily can impede the ability to read. Assistive learning systems are a variety of systems, and in this case, hearing assistive technology that can help students who are deaf or hard of hearing, as well as those with other auditory and learning problems. It means using a microphone and a type of transmission technology and a device for capturing and bringing the sound to the ear. There are different assistive learning systems, and they vary depending on the specific transmission technology used in the system. We have assistive mouse and keyboard replacement. The Orbit Touch here is very intuitive and useful for those who have a problem with finger and hands and wrist control, but also for those suffering from Turner-Kaplan syndromes, because it reduces dramatically the effort to type. Simply moving the two domes, we can type everything, and we can use all the features from a normal keyboard. And there are also technology for writing and speech impairment. There are many apps and programs that help to correctly complete thoughts and sentences and phrases, working either with vocal input and output or written input and output, correcting mistyping, pronunciation, like, you know, the T9 of our mobile phones. Those are useful for foreign students too, and for dyslexic students. And now something you have already seen. Here we are again with the diagram I showed you last week, the one summarizing the DESIG approach. So far, we have quickly explored methods, the process that should involve the academic structure and organization, the key factors attaining the mindset, that is attitude and beliefs, and somehow we have examined the topic of contents too. Currently, many of us are thinking about ways we can recognize and promote a variety of perspectives in our teaching. For example, by showing different approaches to a question or alternative arguments so that one single perspective does not dominate. This includes, as far as contents is concerned, representing a range of contributors to the field thus showing voices from different cultures, gender, race, and backgrounds, and demonstrating that all are represented and valued. But now I would add an issue to each of the 4 topics we have addressed. I do not have a solution. I just leave an open question for you to think about. As inclusion is a project, do you think that this implies extra cost? Assessment, grading, and time for either lessons and assessment are an issue, especially when it comes to evaluate a group work. Interior design students were interviewed, and it was found out that their preferred learning modalities included first visual and second kinesthetic learning style. The 2 courses involved contents concerning the introduction to interior design and the profession, basic level, and color theory, more advanced level. The courses were developed with 3 basic thoughts in mind. How can the information be delivered using multiple modalities? Second, how can assessment of student learning can be obtained by multiple modalities? And 3, how can technology enrich the learning environment to the advantage of online learning? The visual modality was used most frequently in delivery and assessment. So, what was created for mainly visual learners? Internet field trips that encourage learning through observation. The students visited websites of famous architects and designers and listened to audio clips of design concepts and philosophy. Visited websites to observe forms and shapes used in real-life application in the design field, of course. They visited national and international websites concerning color to observe how color was used to realize, let's say, improve the environment according to specific functions, and to garner awards for that profession. They underwent an internet scavenger hunt implemented to encourage learning through personal discovery and exploration. So there was an assignment sheet to guide them. The sheet contained 10, 12 websites, a list to explore related to interior designer profession or related to color use. And then there were questions. The questions were not simple yes or no multiple choice. The questions were posed in a format that required the students to search and locate critical information about the topic and think about it. Then the students were required to attach, to prepare a presentation attaching images and websites and links before uploading it to be sent to the teacher. In the way, they were encouraged not only to explore and discover the topic, but to reflect on it. The third activity was discovery and identification. And it was implemented to assess the accurate identification of the information covered. The students were asked to go into their communities because the students were located all over in the world. It was an international course. And they were asked to go back to their own communities to capture digital images and content already covered in class and transform and upload them for review. As you can see in the image, there is an illustration, a drawing, where a student conveyed his or her, I don't know, personal view of the cultural use of color in China, a Chinese student. Then the other activity was response and analysis. To encourage the analysis, the accurate analysis of a professional topic. So students were asked to select and view a design-related show or documentary and compare and contrast it to the actual interior design profession. The students' analysis were captured in a written paper, in a written essay, and uploaded for the teacher. And especially for assessment, students were asked to deliver content and examples via a lecture in a PowerPoint format, as I'm doing today. Each lecture was developed with visual images that depicted the principle, the topic, or the evaluation of what learned in classroom and in the syllabus. The kinesthetic modality was implemented, asking the student to build a model. They were asked to construct, to build a structure of their choice from the inside out based on a Bauhaus project. They downloaded the assignment sheets, the shapes, triangular shapes that were used to develop the cardstock model. And then a PowerPoint presentation of a previous student work. Once the model was completed, the students were requested to upload some commented picture, 5 to 7 pictures, of various views of the model for assessment and grading purposes. The students were asked to create color mood boards implemented to put in practice learning through cultural and symbolic color application. Sorry. Students were asked to study the use of color in their own countries and then to elaborate creating a color mood board from a professional photograph. The assessment was a PowerPoint lecture to, first of all, to help a visual learner to have a complete overview of the job done without being pressed only by the beauty of the model. And then also to help kinesthetic learner to put in order content and processes. What could have been done to improve? I think that it is good to ask for a final PowerPoint presentation of the work to make a further effort and to bypass the effect of stunt creativity. In addition, in this project, students were asked to submit regularly research papers and sit for multiple choice exam. But there were no group discussion. And it is important to note that this project, though very interesting, was developed mainly for visual and kinesthetic learners in mind. The next step to improve this kind of course involves the implementation of audio clips in PowerPoint lectures, or using videos with captioning and audio, interviews with design professional, with previous student, with customer, will enable students to hear personal stories that would enrich the learning environment. Another positive point, though, was that designers from different cultures, background, and origin were presented and enlisted in the resource list. And that students from different backgrounds at the end resulted as experts, content experts, because each one of them presented the color, the interior design feature, the characteristic of their cultural communities of origin. Contents. When inclusion in our teaching, whatever it may be, the contents are very important. There are, what I'm showing you is Pancras Square. It is an architectural project. If you go to the website of the architects that have designed it, you will never find the word accessibility or inclusion. Nevertheless, this is a truly inclusive project because it offers a variety of possibility to enjoy the place and the spaces according to their functions and for a great variety of functioning. You can see that there are the path on the left-hand side is characterized by stairs. The grip is facilitated, there is light in the handrails, and it is used different color material for visually impaired people. But the right-hand side has no stairs, is a sweet pendant that everybody with strolls or wheelchair can easily walk. There is a swimming pool, a fountain along all the path, and the noise of the water is a good point of reference for blind people, as well as the sight of the bushes and the lawns. There is a variety of way of sitting. You can sit on the lawn, you can sit on the edge of the fountain, you can sit in wooden bench or in stone bench. Some of them have maniglia. This handle is not an handle. I don't know the name for a bench handle, but you can see it for people who have to use the strength of the arms to lift up. Others have not. There are colder places. If you sit in summer in a stone, it's colder than the wood. On the other hand, the wood is warmer in winter. The botanics is studied to offer different smells according to the different season. different colors according to the different season. And this can be also a point of reference for visually impaired people. So beauty is accessibility. Showing this type of projects that are fully inclusive without being conceived to be inclusive, but just because of competence is very good, because it helps us to drag the topic of accessibility and inclusion away from the boundary of social design. Another example I would like to show you is a classroom setting. This is the project of the Classroom 3.0 of an institute of higher education named Pacioli in Italy. A classroom has been created to be used for various activities. It can be booked by the teacher who want to run a specific activity with his or her student. The furniture are flexible, and as you can see, there is no desk. The furniture can be rearranged to support different kind of work, to support teamwork, to support discussion, to support review or tutoring or exam session, and the lab working. The shelves could be rearranged to provide desk, to be transformed into desk, or to provide repository spaces. There are rolling tables that can be moved around the classroom and then that can work as a desk. The classroom is connected via a LAN network, ensuring a more stable connection. There are two interactive boards so that students from different positions can easily view what is being projected, or they can project two different things. There is the possibility to upload directly a document that is ongoing, that is being producing, because they have a Periscope webcam.